everyone. Welcome to the live Godzilla vs. Kong. How we felt about. I'm Captain Logan. Joining me this evening is my wonderful panel, Connor Nielsen is joining me. Hello, Connor.
Hello, how's everybody doing tonight?
And also my good buddy, TheDayGhost.
Yeah, I'm the king of the ghosts tonight.
So tonight we're going to do a real quick kind of non-spoiler thing, and then we'll just open up for questions for spoiler stuff. So anybody that has seen this movie, and I imagine the majority of people watching live, welcome. Thanks for being here live. We'll have seen the movie and will want us to talk about specific things that actually happened in the film that we wouldn't want to do in a traditional how we felt about. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently this time and just do a straight-up Q&A for the rest of the show. And if folks have questions, specific things that you want us to talk about with the movie, we will deal with those, and if not, we'll do just a little bit more conversation and then bid you farewell. I don't think this has to be a real long one necessarily, unless there's a lot that people want us to talk about with this. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and do my sign flip and everything first this time. I usually wait and go at the end, but mine will be very quick, I think. So, first of all, let me just say that I have only seen this movie one time, which is part of the reason that mine will be kind of quick. And then there's like a sequence to this, because I just found out before the show, I saw it once, Connor saw it twice, and Austin saw it 3 times. So, once, twice, 3 times the Godzilla vs. Kong. These guys are apparently way more prepared for this than I am, but Austin even more prepared than the rest of us. So, let me just say that this was a movie that I was not real particularly excited about. I wasn't even sure that I would bother seeing it right out the gate. I liked the other movies in this franchise well enough, but I've only seen any of them one time. I know that 2014, I guess both of those Godzilla movies were kind of polarizing for people, and I thought 2014 was fine, and that last one I did not understand why people turned against it like it was Amazing Spider-Man 2 or something. I thought it was okay. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and kind of wonder if people will reevaluate that a little bit after having seen this. But my whole, I dropped my feeling it sign. My whole initial review of this is simply, this is a lot of fun. I don't have anything insightful to say about this. I'm not a big monster movie guy. I don't know a lot about either of these properties, and I've never seen a Kong movie outside of Skull Island. I've still never gone back and watched the original. Godzilla I'm a lot more familiar with. I've just never gotten around to it. Yeah, see, I knew you guys were gonna be like this. I just have never gotten around to it. I don't care about giant gorillas, and I've just never done it. I know it's an important movie. It's one of those things where I feel like I've seen it already because I know the big beats, and I just have never bothered with it. You guys can do this review by yourself. That's fine. Anyway,
can you give me a minute so I can go get my gun?
Forget it. I'm feeling it. This was enjoyable. You guys go ahead.
Connor, you want to go first?
Oh yeah, sure.
1, 2, 3.
All right. So, yeah. So the MonsterVerse, I've sort of been hot and cold on. You see, I'm a lifelong kaiju fan. You could almost say it's a faith I've been indoctrinated into since I was a child. I worship at the Church of Godzilla, if you will. I watched through all of those as a kid. I love all the monsters. I loved most of the movies, specifically the Showa era. And when the 2014 Godzilla movie came, it was like a dream come true. I liked it a lot. And however, I feel like that faith has been waning. I have gone through a crisis of faith, if you will, in the kaiju movie, because I thought Kong Skull Island was honestly kind of obnoxious. I thought Rampage was garbage, and I thought Godzilla King of the Monsters was a soul-crushing disappointment, almost as disappointing as Soul was. So I was really calling into question my faith in 2019. Do I actually still like kaiju movies? Well, let me tell you what, folks. Godzilla vs. Kong is the American kaiju film I've been wanting since I was 8 years old. I absolutely loved it. My heart was filled with joy. I looked upon with an almost religious awe, and my faith was rewarded. And it shouldn't happen this way because I don't like Adam Wingard. I haven't historically liked the Adam Wingard films I've seen, and I was not excited for this, even though the trailer was absolutely awesome. But I was impressed from beginning to end, and I loved this movie so much. And it's only fitting that it was released on Easter weekend. So Godzilla has arisen in my estimation again, the American interpretation of him, anyways. So I am absolutely feeling it, and I think it is absolutely cool that Adam Wingard basically made a 200 or however whatever budget this was, whatever $1 million Showa era movie. Like, it's insane how like functional and just to the point the plot is, and I was, hold on one moment. When it comes to Kong, I've not been a huge Kong fan my whole life. I remember I saw the original when I was young, and I thought it was really cool, but I never got around to rewatching it. But I did see it again last month in preparation for this movie. And between the original Godzilla and the original Kong, I don't know which one I like more. I think they are just as, they have just as much insights into the cultures that created them as the other one. I think that King Kong is a very American film, and I think that Godzilla is a very Japanese movie. And the two styles are different, but immediately after the original Godzilla, it just turned to complete schlock, which I don't mind, because the original Godzilla film takes the aesthetics of schlock and then just transcends it. And as far as the Godzilla fighting Kong movie, I feel like it's just a very logical step, because the appeal of King Kong is he's a giant monkey that fights other monsters. He fights dinosaurs, he fights big bears, he fights all kinds of creatures. And so what if he fights a dinosaur that breathes fire and has dorsal fins and whatnot? It's a very fun what if. And so I didn't realize just how many Kong fans there were before this movie, but the debate I've had with people as a Team Godzilla guy, I would have been fine with either one of them winning, because I love my two boys, but I'm a Godzilla guy at the end of the day. And I was still absolutely floored by this movie. I really enjoyed it. So that's all I have to say about that.
Go ahead, Austin.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of your pacing thing, because that's my best thing of this movie on rewatches, is how to the point it is. And I don't know how much you guys have looked into this, but apparently it originally had a 5-hour-long work print, and they cut it down to just below 2 hours, which is insane. I have
People
no idea.
were worried a few weeks ago when there was a runtime that had been leaked that was like 250 or something. And people were like, oh god, it's going to be a Snyder film or something.
Wow.
And my mind was blown when it came out at an hour 52.
Yeah, and I heard a quote from Wingard where he was like, it's Godzilla vs. Kong. It shouldn't... Being 2 hours, it needs to justify that length. But it's Godzilla vs. Kong. It's below that. Which I respect a lot, because there's a lot of movies that don't need the length that they have.
I do too, but I still don't understand why we make movies like that. I don't understand how 5-hour work prints happen. How come we can't make a script that's a length and then shoot it? I don't understand that.
Yeah, no kidding. That we'll get the 5-hour cut eventually on HBO Max. Yeah, I think as with the other MonsterVerse movies, because it was 2014 that was the one that got me into Godzilla originally, and then I watched through most of them in high school, and I think going back to the first one now, it's kind of it doesn't want to be schlock, but it is, but it's too serious to be that, and I think it's kind of dull in places. And then Kong and King of the Monsters, I think, are both way more fun to watch. And then this film blows straight past them, and I think it's the best one in this series so far. The worst thing is easily the kid from Deadpool 2, who's terrible.
Yeah, Fire Fist. Why is he even in this? Yeah. Halfway through the movie, my son looks at me, Jason, and he goes, why? And he means for the story, he's like, why is that kid even there? What does he do? Why did they bring him? And I just look at him and I'm like, I honestly don't know.
Yeah, he's just there to be annoying. And that's Kyle Chandler's best line in the movie, where he walks in and is like, shut up. To that kid, and then he never. Do
you think it's because? And I don't want to get too far into spoilers yet, obviously, but do you think it's because both subplots? Because you have two converging subplots in this, right? You got two sets of characters that are off figuring things out or trying to make something happen, and I wonder if it's because they thought both subplots required a comic relief character, and I don't know why they thought that.
Well, it's weird because you kind of have two with the Godzilla side.
Actually, the more I'm thinking about it, both of the comic relief characters I'm talking about are in one faction,
Yeah.
or in one set of characters. So no, that can't be it. Why did they put them
No.
both there? Yeah, because the podcast guy is already that.
Yeah, because you have the Kong human characters who are kind of just people in a movie, and then you have the Godzilla characters who.
Yeah, and they're all the most.
Something else.
The Kong characters are all the most serious characters in the movie, really.
Yeah, and they're probably some of the best characters in the whole series, I think. Like,
Yeah.
the monsterverse, not Godzilla.
Well, and like I said earlier, I don't know these movies all that well, so I wasn't sure how many of these human characters we'd seen before. I couldn't remember. I thought the woman on the Kong side had been in Skull Island, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Was she not?
It's just the girl on the Godzilla side and her dad.
Oh, okay. Because I recognized him. I thought he was in the Godzilla movies, but yeah.
Yeah, he's the main character of the last film, and he's an extended cameo in this one.
And he's also this is not
Peter
only his second Godzilla movie, this is his second Kong movie because he was in the Peter Jackson King Kong film.
Oh, that's really funny.
Kind of funny.
Yeah, and he's great in that movie, too.
Yeah.
The
only reason I never saw that was because people said it was too long. People said it was kind of boring.
Well, they're wrong.
I like it.
Oh, do you? Okay, I might try it at some point then.
I mean, it's long.
You have to watch
Peter
the
Jackson
original
movie.
first. But
Yeah, no, and I probably will at some point, but yeah.
Yeah, the Peter Jackson movie is a very meta movie because it's a movie about King Kong, the original film, as well as a King Kong remake. So.
Yeah, well, I've always said you can't really appreciate the Peter Jackson one without the original, because it's very much just his love for that movie. But I have my signs, which I have pink, which is... Oh, I'm going to have to turn my background off. I don't have proper red, but
We're
I
gonna
got
get a sneak peek into Austin's house. Oh, which is just a wall.
And then so that's my negative sign, and this is my positive sign, which is both yellow and blue, which creates green. And I am going to flip green on this movie.
I'll do a real quick best thing, worst thing, because I didn't earlier, but what was that background? What was that?
That was just like a stock background.
I'm
sorry, Connor, real quick, did you have a best thing, worst thing? I don't know if you actually did that.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. My bad. My best thing is I like how they make Kong basically the protagonist movie in a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Because it is like that kind of makes it a Kong film, but in like the old Godzilla movies, Godzilla's really only in a handful of scenes until the last 5 Showa era movies where they had no money and suits that were falling apart and they just made it a wrestling thing for like 30 minutes. But
and it's all like reused clips too.
Yes, so much stock footage. Megalon attacks Tokyo with stock footage, and so I really like that Kong is kind of the main character to a certain degree, and all the stuff with Kong, like I want to see this Kong movie. I don't know if it's like spoilers, but it is in the first act. They straight up do like a Hollow Earth movie, and that was great. I thought that was a really fun direction to take it. It's something that's been teased in the last 2. I didn't think we would actually do that, that's the entire Kong subplot, and I really liked Kong in this. And my least favorite thing, you guys were talking about Julian Dennison as your least favorite thing. I thought it was Millie Bobby Brown, because I thought Brian Tyree Henry and Julian Dennison had some pretty fun comedy interplay. I just feel like Millie Bobby Brown was just being overly intense and kind of overacting in a role that she didn't need to overact for.
That's fair.
But it's like, okay, girl, you can turn the intensity down just a little bit. But yeah, and honestly, just the amount of monster fights in this, I was just absolutely overjoyed with, because I thought that in King of the Monsters, it was just obnoxious how we were like there was like 5 seconds of monster fighting, cut to the human characters, cut back for just a couple more seconds, cut back to the human characters, and the human drama was overblown family schmaltz, and there was like this over convoluted plot to just like basically have a monster control machine MacGuffin that I just thought was like ridiculous. Just get rid of that. But it's like thought way too hard about the mechanics about how we're going to get monsters from A to B, and this just has the monsters, has simple explanations for why monsters are going where they are, and they let the humans just sit on the sidelines, and every once in a while you'll cut to them going, "Whoa, what's that?" And I'm like, great, that's what I want. This is a monster movie now. Great, I like this. So, yeah.
And when we are focusing on human characters, it's actually moving the story forward.
Yes, and they're like, the characters are like solely functional to the plot, and that's what I want out of one. And the plot itself is entertaining enough to tie you in between the two, or between like the monster fights that happen throughout. And that's all I want from like a big dumb monster movie. This is what I want from it. It's not trying to be more than it is. It's not trying to be this like meditation on like what monsters mean to us and all this kind of stuff. It's just a monster mash. And that's all I want from my Godzilla movies.
Yeah, no, it's not remotely pretentious. It doesn't really have any kind of agenda. It feels like a real old school summer blockbuster to me. Like, Connor, you keep going back to the ways it reminds you of earlier Japanese Godzilla movies, and you're absolutely right about that. But I feel like I'm back in a good way, because obviously there's a lot of really bad ones. But like, I feel like I'm back in my childhood with this movie. I feel like I'm back in like the really good '90s summer blockbusters, and even better than some of those. Because like, this is, I feel like there's a lot of movies that I grew up with that are what this, or that think they were this. You know, like Independence Day thought it was this. Like I really appreciate that. I think my best thing is, because we were talking about how straightforward it is, and it gets to the point, and it's not any longer than it needs to be. I'm not looking at my watch at all, but I appreciate how it plays everything so straight. Like, I have to keep reminding myself how silly a lot of stuff in this movie is, because I'm kind of going with it, and then I'm like, I don't want to get into spoilers quite yet, but there's a couple elements. You were talking about the Hollow Earth thing, and then there's a whole thing related to a monster from the previous movie where I'm like, God, if I give that 5 seconds of thought, that is insane. And it's great because it's what a lot of older Godzilla movies might have done with it. It's really clever and creative, and there's a lot of really fun kind of like pseudoscience and like science fantasy stuff going on, but the characters play it 100% straight. And I also appreciate, even though I didn't like the Fire Fist character, you said the actor's name, but I'm just going to call him Fire Fist. I appreciate that if that kid's got to be there, at least he's not a super genius with computers.
Yeah.
They subverted that trope wonderfully. Like, I love that line where he's like, I mean, I'm smart, but I'm still in high school. I'm like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that kid was probably also my worst thing overall. And just some of the writing in the human stuff. Like, sometimes they went a little bit too far, I thought, with the conspiracy theory guy. I appreciate just with some of his lines where there was some kind of cutesy token, like, I'm supposed to be laughing now kinds of moments that I didn't love with him. But I did appreciate that with all the conspiracy theory stuff, the movie never came out and said everything he says is true. Did you notice that? I really appreciate that, because I thought it was going to go there, and it was like, he's right about the stuff that he's observed and learned about the big, like, evil corporation, the Apex, but because he works there and he's figured all this stuff out. But, like, he also is maybe Looney Tunes. I'm not sure. And I like that by the time I get to the end of that movie, we're in a universe where everything he says could 100% be true. It's possible. But I don't actually know that. So, like, at the end of the day, I like that guy, too. And if we're doing, like, any social commentary at all beyond the stuff that was already kind of building with the series, where it's just and typical Godzilla stuff, where you're just dealing with, you know, man playing God and trying to control nature that it doesn't understand and that kind of thing. Well, I was going to say conspiracy theory stuff, but I don't even think this is saying anything about conspiracy theory stuff. I think it's just using that as a backdrop, where it's like a thing that we can't get away from in culture. So it's just kind of playing around with it and messing with it, and it's I don't know. It's such wonderful escapist fun, and I'm missing that right now. And we need some variety with that. This was very, very refreshing to me.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things, like you said, it plays everything straight. So many blockbusters now have that wink to the audience mentality, where it's like, yeah, we get it, this is kind of silly, and like, it's just not funny when everything does it. And I really like that it played everything straight here. It reminded me of, like, when you're a kid watching, say, like 66 Batman and you don't understand how silly it is. Just like,
yeah, you guys were talking about the Godzilla stuff, and I think that of the two subplots, the Godzilla human side, which is not really that connected to Godzilla, but it kind of is. But that one is, it's the lesser of the two. We also spend less time with it. But what I liked about it was what you were saying, Austin, is that while that one is pretty heavy on the comic relief. You're right. It doesn't have a sort of ironic, like tongue-in-cheek nature to it, and I think the reason I was a little more forgiving of, say, the Fire Fist character is that whenever like a scene would start, in my head I would think, okay, this is I had a version of the movie or the scene in my head about how it was going to play out, and that was like the annoying version of it, and then it didn't do that. And I actually kind of like what they did do there. For example, at one point, Millie Bobby Brown and Brian Tyree Henry have like a secret handshake or like fist bump that they do, and instead of Julian Dennison stopping it, going, "Wait, hold on, I got left out of the secret handshake. Let's try," and having it just ramble on for 5 more minutes like it's a Deadpool movie. He just kind of hangs out in the background going, "What?" And then that's it, and that's all the attention it gets. And then he made.
Don't worry, that's in the 5-hour cut.
I kept expecting those scenes to linger, and that's where it gets away from that kind of MCU humor. Because I'm going to give it that it doesn't have that problem.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. At no point does the closest thing is like the first thing that happens is Kong wakes up and like kind of scratches his butt, and that's the closest thing to a sort of MCU type humor thing that this has.
Yeah, and that was fine because that's what he'd do. Like I thought that whole moment was actually really kind of charming. Not necessarily the butt scratching, but I'm just saying that just the song that's playing and he gets up and he just seems like a normal person going through a normal morning routine. And then I feel like, tell me if I'm going too far when I say this. This is a minor spoiler, then we'll just get into straight spoilers. But I felt like that kind of foreshadowed look, Kong is more human than you thought he was. Like he's not that far away from a person. And then later on he's actually able to communicate. And I thought that by and large, that was kind of the point, is that for whatever reason, however you want to read it, Godzilla and Kong had both become not just sympathetic, but a lot more self-aware and sentient than you thought they were. So they're not full-blown human beings now or anything. But by the end of the day, the big thing they have in common is they both end up caring about at least somebody beyond themselves. And I like that. I think that was nice. I also really appreciated that in a Versus movie, even though, and we'll go into spoilers now, so spoiler time, but even though it's, they do have the kind of obligatory, by the end, they're working together thing. It doesn't happen until the last 10 minutes of the movie. I don't know if I've ever seen that in a Versus movie, where the two characters are actually going to, besides Freddy versus Jason or something, where they're actually gonna, get together and not be friends in this, but have to work together toward a common goal. It happens at the last 10 minutes, and somebody in the actual fight does really win. That's really unusual.
Yeah, I was thinking about your Batman v Superman rewind, that great line that I will forever reference whenever we do a who would win in a fight, this person or this person, where you say the only person who wins is nobody. And I was thinking they were going to do a similar thing here.
Me too. This is what we always do.
Yes. And so them actually having because when I heard that there was going to be some team up happening, so I thought, okay, we're not actually going to have a winner. It'll be very similar to the original where they go underwater and then there's an earthquake and then Kong swims away. But it's just what happened underwater, we don't know. So did Godzilla or Kong win? It's up to your imagination. As a kid, I thought that was crap. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
And the water thing happens in a lot of Versus movies, too, because it's in Freddy vs. Jason and Frankenstein versus the Wolfman.
And so them actually having a decided winner was again, 8-year-old me was in heaven that they actually solved the grudge match there. and then they team up, and it's great too. That's great.
Yeah, and they team up somewhat begrudgingly. Like, both of them, when that's over, think the other one is going to pounce on him again.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. And when they go their separate ways, like, I think that's supposed to be kind of the moral of the story, is like, when they have to team up against us, now they realize that they can kind of coexist because maybe they need to because we're the problem. That's kind of my read on it, and I like that a lot. But like, Connor, I thought they were either going to do what you were suggesting, or it was going to be that Batman versus Ninja Turtles thing where they have an obligatory fight 30 minutes into the movie and then they're friends the rest of the movie. I also thought that might happen, and it didn't. And it's nice that they actually fight 40 minutes into the film. Like, you don't wait until the very end before there's a fight. And they even talk about it like it's a boxing match, where it's like, oh, he won round 2, but the other one won round 1. Like, I love that stuff.
Yeah, I like that as well. And the monster fights themselves, like, I had a lot of criticisms for those in Godzilla King of the Monsters, where it just kind of felt like, and then he hits one of Ghidorah's heads, and then Ghidorah hits him with his 3 heads, and then we cut away. This one, like, they go to Hong Kong where the skyscrapers are just ginormous, and King Kong is like, King Kong famously climbs buildings. He's just jumping all over the buildings, climbing all around, and Godzilla's just chopping them in half with his laser breath. That's delightful.
And you mentioned Rampage earlier. This makes that movie look sad by comparison.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm with you, man. I was disappointed with Rampage, and I saw this, and it was everything I wanted from Rampage.
Yes.
Like, I had that same thought. How atmospheric is that fight in Hong Kong, man? With all the neon and everything? Like, it's spectacular.
Oh, it's great.
A lot of the lighting in this throughout is really kind of pretty. A lot of these MonsterVerse movies look really, really good. And what I like about them is that they all sort of have a distinct visual style. Where, Gareth Edwards was kind of doing more of like a Christopher Nolan type color palette. And, Gareth Edwards has that very trademark style about how he captures giant objects in the frame, with like Rogue One and Godzilla and even his first film Monsters. And then the last Godzilla movie, it's doing something different, and then this movie's doing something different entirely from those other two. So I really like that. And what I also like is, even though I wasn't a fan of King of the Monsters or Kong Skull Island, the identity of each of these 4 different MonsterVerse movies, they kind of are trying to adapt different kinds of monster movies. And so I think it's telling that a lot of people like different kinds of these movies. So people who tend to like Kong Skull Island, they like the Harryhausen type kind of movies that's sort of paying homage to. And King of the Monsters is more of like a Heisei Millennium era Godzilla movie. And I don't know, I just kind of like how they're trying to do different kinds of kaiju flicks, as opposed to just doing the Marvel thing that they do now, is they have their identity and they just kind of stick to their formula. I like that.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, the opening credits are kind of the only links, because they all have very similar opening credits, and outside of that, they're all very different films.
Yeah, but unlike something like this like Zack Snyder DCEU movies, they all still feel like they can exist in the same universe all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm never like, wait, how is this supposed to be, like, because in the same world as the last one I saw, because they are tonally very different, but there's better connective tissue between each of them. Yeah. But that is a really good point that you make, Connor, that they're kind of for different people. And I also think that, or potentially for different people, or if you're a big monster, movie person, they might all be for you because you like all those different things. I also think that as they go along, for better or worse, each of them is like cares less about who is watching them. Because Godzilla 2014 seemed really concerned about accessibility, and then Kong Skull Island cared a lot less about that, and was maybe for more of a niche crowd. And then a lot of people felt, and I had this too, but not to the same degree. I didn't think it was terrible. But King of the Monsters, I think, maybe went a little too far the other direction, where it was like, oh, okay, you want to see Godzilla? Well, we'll just make it crazy. And then this movie struck a balance where, like, it's not necessarily for everyone, but it's that thing I'm always talking about, where in not being too concerned about who's watching it, it somehow becomes more accessible because it might win people over. I'm not a monster movie person, but I really enjoyed this. It was a movie. You know what I mean? Like it stopped being concerned about who was watching it and just told the story it wanted to tell. And then, hey, it told a story because it wasn't just trying to, throw everything at the wall that was supposed to make everybody happy. This movie is not trying to make everybody happy. And I think in doing that, it makes a lot more people happy ultimately.
I concur. This is a movie where Godzilla knows that Kong is in the hollow earth, so he breathes a hole to the center of the earth with his fire. And then Kong's like, okay, there's the fight. So he just climbs out of the hole in like 4 seconds. And then they fight. And, hey,
my favorite part of that is he blows a hole through the earth all the way down to the core, and then he roars into it, and Kong looks down in the hole and roars back. Got back between them.
And I just love that kind of... Tell me if I'm crazy, because while I was watching it, I was thinking, are they really doing this? Are they really going back to that thing that everybody has as kids, where if you dig far enough into the earth, you'll wind up in China? Is that what we're doing? I think that's what we're doing.
That came into my head, too, yeah.
So good. Now that we're in spoilers, can I give you my real actual best thing? Because my favorite thing with this movie is a moment, and I couldn't spoil it earlier. How do you get any better than that bit where Kong and Godzilla just start roaring at each other, and they just keep cutting back and forth between them? It's the best, and that scene could have gone on for 3 more minutes, and I would have been fine with it.
Yeah, well, and that's one of those places where I think we really humanize one of the monsters, where Godzilla stops, then like stands up and gives him like a "don't get back up" nod, and then walks away.
Yeah. Speaking of like spoiler moments that I really like, so watching through, so we do Mechagodzilla. It's I don't know how much of a spoiler that is because it's teased from the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, but we're into full-on spoilers now, so just do it up.
Cybernetics Company, nobody should be surprised that Mechagodzilla's...
I actually didn't know he was going to be in this until I accidentally had it spoiled for me the other day in a Discord, and I was like, I wish I hadn't known, but it was all right, because I was watching it with my kids, but Jason, by the way, adored this movie, and Jason has seen a couple of old Godzilla movies, and the first one he ever saw was Mechagodzilla, and he just lost his mind when Mechagodzilla was there, and I knew it. And I was kind of waiting for it, but I forgot that Jason didn't know. So that was worth it. That was fantastic getting to see him watch that.
Well, when Spencer and I were watching through all the Showa era movies, and we got to the 2-parter of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla and Terror of Mechagodzilla, my brother said, I gotta say it. I'm sorry, Ghidorah, but Mechagodzilla is the best Godzilla villain. We do Ghidorah-controlled Mechagodzilla. Yes! That was great.
And the best detail about that... Sorry, what's that?
Ghidorah's got hands now, and he's using them. He is just taking them and throwing Godzilla into building after building. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, my favorite detail with that is that before he's taken over, he's got a robotic Godzilla roar. But once he's taken over, he's got a robotic Ghidorah roar. And that is awesome.
I didn't even... Oh, that's true, he does! You know what? I had a moment where I was like, why is his roar weird? I didn't think of that. Okay, that's awesome.
He's got like the robotic Ghidorah cackle, and it's awesome.
Oh, I love the King Ghidorah weird, thing he does. It's so good.
What impressed me about the choice, and again, it's so wacky, and I love it for that, because these are people that again, have a lot of reverence for that material, and they're pretty unabashed and not scared of people thinking it's too goofy or not getting it or something. And I thought the best, beyond the fact that just having it be a telepathic skull from one of the 3 heads of the previous monster is how you're controlling Mechagodzilla, and that this head of this corporation would think that would be sustainable, and it's like, yeah, you see, this is why human beings are the king of the monsters now, because we have technology where you can take a telepathic skull of one monster and control technology. Genius. That should work. You'll be able to keep that going for years, I'm sure. But the best thing about it to me was that it gave a perfectly reasonable explanation within the crazy internal logic of this for why Mechagodzilla is able to achieve sentience on a dime. Because if we played that as artificial intelligence, even in the insanity that is this movie, I would have been out. I would have been like, okay, it's too easy. It's what we always do. So you turn the thing on, probably first time you've ever used it, and 5 seconds in, oh, it's got a mind of its own now. But because it was that skull, it worked.
Yeah, which I have to imagine is a reference to, I think it's Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, where he's built from the remains of the 1954 Godzilla, and that's why he runs amok.
I didn't know about that. That's really cool.
Head, yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, and honestly, like, so the head of the corporation, the sort of human villain, Red Herring, is a guy played by Demian Bashir, who's an actor I generally like, and he's playing just like a great like Showa era Toho villain. He kind of like felt like he could have walked off of Mothra versus Godzilla, and so I would have been cool if he was the bad guy. But then we kind of flipped the script, and he just gets taken out in a heartbeat. And I thought that was great.
That was the thing I really appreciated in this too, Connor, is that there are maybe not a bunch, but at least 2 or 3 characters that you've been with through part of the movie, and they just get killed unceremoniously and never talked about again. And I thought that was great.
Father and daughter too.
That's true.
And the one with the daughter is so funny.
It is.
Kong picks up the ship, just kind of looks at it, and is just like, walks away.
See, that was my favorite human death in this. Like, and it's a fun subversion on the Kong picking up the girl trope that's in all the Kong movies.
That's true. My jaw was on the floor when that was she in a helicopter or a ship or something? I can't remember what it was, but she was in some kind of vehicle that just explodes, and I was like, really? That's the end? Okay. That's the end of that character. For a second, I was like, she's going to survive whatever this is, and then there's this massive explosion. So good. Let's go ahead and go to some super chats now, folks, and feel free to mention other scenes or moments or aspects of this movie that we've not tackled yet that you'd like us to talk about, either in super chat or in pre-written questions, and we will tackle a few of those right now. Here's $5 pops in and gives us $5. Hello, here's $5. Thanks for coming back. I placed my bets on Kong. I lost $5. Here's $5. I heard that from thanks, man. I heard that from a lot of people, actually. People get gullible, and I'm like, don't place bets, no one's gonna win. And then, Connor, we were totally wrong. Somebody actually won this time, and Godzilla actually wins. And yeah, we do that obligatory, like, Kong's dead, but we have an easy, convenient way to bring him back to life, because there's a MacGuffin that we've been trying to get the whole movie that's like a giant tomahawk that can like power a city. Okay.
Because it's like a Godzilla dorsal fin, and like that's made into an axe.
Oh, is that what it's supposed to be?
They never call attention to it. Yeah, it's just, if you notice it, you notice it. If you don't, you don't.
And I didn't, yeah. It's only ever referred to as the axe.
Yeah, it's built from some sort of bone, I assume, from a Godzilla, and one of his dorsal fins is the blade.
I had this stupid thought because Kong is in the Hollow Earth, right? And he goes and gets that, and the Apex people are like following him, just hoping that he'll get this MacGuffin so that they'll have the energy they need to run Mechagodzilla, I think is the whole thing, right? And he picks up the axe. And I like, by the way, how much downtime we have in that scene, where like we really spend some time with him, like looking at that and thinking about the implications of everything, and just spending some time in this really cool area with the big like imprint of Godzilla that's on the floor and all of that. And then and then later on he's got it in a fight. And it wasn't until then that I realized just how large the axe was. Because I'm like, yes, of course, proportionate to Kong, like, it wouldn't seem that big, but obviously it must be massive, but it wasn't until it was in a shot with people and stuff, like, that thing is huge! And I felt really dumb about that.
Well, I had the same thought, where he, like, has to, like, stick it in a building for a second to go do something else so we can come back for it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it is huge. And then Godzilla's like pick it up with his mouth because his arms are too tiny. Lovely. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's another thing is I think this is the first time we see Godzilla bleed in this, where King Kong cuts into his leg in that shot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, OAW, we'll get there. We'll get there. Logan Dodd, 49 super chat. So going off the beaten path for just a second, because it's a super chat. How awful do the Suicide Squad and Space Jam 2 look? Austin, you should be stoked to watch them. I mean, Suicide Squad's not my thing, but it doesn't look bad or anything.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't
I'm
think.
excited for both of those. One, because I legitimately think the Suicide Squad will be pretty good, and Space Jam 2 is going to be so off the rails and terrible, and I love it so much, and I'm going to watch that the day it comes out.
Yeah, we'll definitely do a spoiler cast on that.
I think that honestly, the Green Band trailer for the Suicide Squad was better than the Red Band
It
trailer.
was!
Oh, weird. I had the opposite. I thought the Green Band one looked kind of generic.
I just thought the Red Band one was trying to sell you on the premise that you already know because most people saw the 2016 movie. But I went to go see this movie in a theater, and first time going to see a movie in a theater in 7 months, this was like a dream come true. But they played the Green Band Suicide Squad trailer. I thought it looked kind of better than the Red Band, but
Fair enough. They're both pretty good.
yeah.
Here's another one from sometime this week on the Captain Logan show, we'll talk more about the Space Jam 2 trailer.
King
Here's
Kong is in it. It's not this design, but he is in it.
yeah, he sure is, because
I don't know
pretty
why
much
they-
everything that was in Ready Player One is in that movie.
Are you guys serious?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. I thought that was just a joke that we had in like the Discord, but that's real. Okay.
It was real, yeah.
no, it's real, because they're selling that exactly the same way they sold Ready Player One, because Kong was also in that trailer.
Why?
I think.
Yeah,
With the
Kong
Kong
and
thing,
Mechagodzilla
though.
were in, Ready Player One.
With the Kong thing, it's weird because, like with Ready Player One, and I assume with this too, they reuse a lot of just like assets they already have, and that's how they get so many characters in there.
Huh.
And it's weird that they made a new King Kong design. But
Yeah,
it's whatever.
especially when they just had a Kong movie. It's weird. By the way, real quick, can we talk about just how good Kong looks specifically? I mean, we've been talking some about special effects and stuff, and just how pretty the movie looks. But this is really building a lot on everything that was accomplished with the Planet of the Apes movies, right? Like it looks that good or better.
When he's in the Antarctica and he has like all the snow on him, it looks so good.
It's ridiculous.
I agree. The shot that really stuck out to me is towards the end. Godzilla like gets right up in the camera, and there's like a level of clarity to it that is so detailed. I was like amazed at how good the effects are by now.
What's
I had
weird?
that with the first shot of Godzilla too, where he comes out of the water and his mouth opens up. It looks real. Like it's crazy.
What's weird is the only places special effects wise I was taken out with this movie were with like vehicles and buildings and things. It was never the monsters. It was never any like living creature.
Mm-hmm. That's impressive. It's really like these movies. Like I think Austin, when we were having like the Discord watch party with these MonsterVerse movies, like they're kind of at the cutting edge of how blockbuster effects look. Because we are talking about how in every Marvel movie, there's always at least like a handful of shots that just look really bad, especially since they've started doing 3 of them a year. And these ones just always look like knockouts.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had, 4 films in 7 years, but the CGI work on them is so beautiful.
Right.
Yeah, you know what this never had? That crappy green screen problem that every other Marvel movie has.
It's not, the end fight isn't the Black Panther fight where it's just 2 like CGI things just like
in front of a
snapping each
monorail
other in like a PS1 graphic. Yeah.
There's no balloon people in this.
Here's $5 is back. Next film is Godzilla vs. Winter Soldier. Film ends in a draw with the 2 drinking and Godzilla regretting all the lives he's taken. Here's $5.
I mean, that's just inevitably where it's going to be going, right?
Yeah, well, you find out Godzilla's roar is like the last code word for the Winter Soldier, so that's like what really messes him up at the end. He just needs somebody else to say the first few words, But then when does his roar, it's like the last like deactivation code.
Or it turns out that it's Apex, which is why he's been around this long. Somebody said Apex. Um, Speaking of like the potential future of this franchise, as far as I understand it, right now there isn't one. Right? Isn't the idea that the rights are about to revert, and this was the last movie they could make, and the hope is that maybe they can make another deal with Toho, but we don't know if that'll happen. Am I right about that whole thing?
Yeah. The deal with Toho was for 3 films, so they're out, and Toho wants to do their own series again. So now it's just whether they'll allow both of them to coexist, and it all depends on how successful this is, by what Adam Wingard has said.
And judging by the box office returns, this is doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think its opening weekend was more than the opening weekend of the last Godzilla movie, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, its 5-day weekend was just like a bit over, or I think a bit under the opening 3-day weekend of King of the Monsters, but with like COVID and like theaters not being at full capacity and stuff,
that's amazing. Releasing on HBO Max at the same time. I didn't go to the theater. I'll freely admit I watched this on Max on my projector at home.
And apparently, it only made $3 million on premium on demand.
Wow.
That's mostly mine.
Yeah, that's just Canada because they don't have HBO Max. But actually, like I reacted to that, but actually that makes sense, Connor, because a lot of people have HBO Max right now that probably didn't before because they can get 21 new movies this year.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, I've heard this is the best or like the most viewed film they've put on HBO Max, but I don't know how true that is. But I heard they jumped out with that number pretty quick.
Well, I'll be interested to see if they get any more movies. How badly after this do you guys want to see more movies in this franchise? Like, do you have the attitude of, well, if they've proven that they have the ability to make the thing I really want, so I'd love more of these, or are you thinking this is a good one to go out on? Please don't make any more because you can only go downhill from there. Like where are you guys at on that?
Well, I've liked all these movies. I think outside of Marvel, they're the only ones that have managed to do the cinematic universe thing well since that started. Yeah, I'd like to see them continue. I don't know exactly what they can do moving forward, but because it all depends on rights and stuff. But I'd like to see them maybe try to get the rights to Gamera or something.
Yeah, that's what I'd like. I love Gamera.
And I'd like to see them try to get enough stuff together so they could do a remake of Destroy All Monsters. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think after this you'd have to call it Godzilla Kong Destroy All Monsters so you can cash in on this, but
everybody likes to make fun of King of the Monsters because there's only 2 other monsters in that movie.
Well, yeah, there's a Mothra Rodan and he fights Ghidorah, but then they have like all the unspecific kind of generic, oh, it's a woolly mammoth for 4 seconds. There's a spider, not Kamunga, but it's a giant spider.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, in the book for that movie, I think they did like a art book, and it was like, oh, there's like a giant radioactive turtle also. He's just not in the movie. Who knows what that guy is?
I thought it was really funny, the opening of this movie, the credits. Sorry, Connor, let me say this real quick. I thought it was really funny that you had the credits in this movie where you had to just kind of imagine that there were a lot more movies before this one, because you had all the, like the X's where it's like, Godzilla killed all these other monsters, and Kong killed all these other monsters, and we didn't show you any of that, but just imagine it happened.
Yeah, so when it comes to this franchise, I would be cool if they, wanted to call it here, but I'd also be cool if they wanted to keep going. I can wait. We are talking like they've done, 4 of these over 7 years, and I think what's cool is that each one of these is more or less self-contained, even though they carry the monsters over and they try to keep some sense of continuity. Not only are their styles pretty isolated from one another, but the narratives themselves are kind of contained. So I'm open to more, but if they don't want to, I think this is the right one to go out on.
Yeah, like it's a bummer, I think, if they don't continue, but it's not the biggest deal. Like we ended on a high note.
And I mean, look, I know Austin, you and I, we are big fans of Invasion of Astro Monster, aka Godzilla versus Monster Zero. Let's do Alien. Let's do the kind of movie where they're aliens that are in human form to disguise their real form, and they wear like silver leotards, and they've infiltrated Earth, and we do that whole kind of formula for another one. Let's just do it. Let's do Gigan, and let's do aliens for the humans to fight. So
I was thinking about it today when I rewatched it. I was like, next one, gotta do aliens. We need like the aliens show up with a new King Ghidorah.
yeah.
Well,
You know,
I would
like the
love
space
them.
chimps.
I mean, the crazy stuff, like we were talking about earlier with the skull and everything, like that tells me they're probably not too afraid of anything at this point. They've got their built-in audience, and they're maybe growing it a little bit with this. Like, if they were able to keep going, I would love to see something nuts like go to the future of this world and do a post-apocalyptic thing, and like adapt a little bit from the Netflix Godzilla series, which I like a lot. And I know a lot of people think it's really boring, but I think it's quite good. And I'd love to see some stuff from that brought in. And isn't there, because I don't know a lot of those movies, but isn't there actually like a space Godzilla? Isn't that a thing?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you could do that. You just do straight up space Godzilla.
Mike Dougherty, I think his name is, director of King of the Monsters, said he wanted to do a like BC Godzilla versus King Ghidorah movie. That's like the origin of that kind of fight in King of the Monsters, and I'd be interested in seeing that just because it would be very different.
That's interesting. We'll get back to. I never would have thought of that as a possibility. Going back in time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get back to super chats here in a second. I want to ask you guys this real quick because I forgot to do it earlier. How do you guys feel about the design for Mechagodzilla? Because I loved that he was there, and I loved a lot of the stuff that he got to do, but I wasn't real happy with his design personally. I thought he looked a little anorexic.
Yeah, I think that I think the original show era Mechagodzilla design is like maybe my favorite movie robot.
It's
like,
kind of too perfect is the thing.
Yeah, and so and I think the what you were talking about, Austin and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, like that one looks really cool as well. And I mean, I wasn't crazy about the Ready Player One design, but I thought it was a little bit better than this one. And yeah, you're right. Like I'm not crazy about the Mechagodzilla look, but I did like Mechagodzilla himself. Or itself. It's a robot. But yeah, I don't know. I'm with you, Cap.
Yeah, it had to win me over a little bit on that design. It's just when you first see it, it was like, it's a little weird.
It's just the head. It's mostly just the head.
I do like the tail though, with the little spinning thing on it. That was cool.
But it was trying to overcompensate. Godzilla's too fat, so Mechagodzilla's got to be too thin.
You can go a little thinner, but it doesn't have to be anorexic. Yeah, he looks like he really needs a steak or something. That Mechagodzilla.
Well, that's why all the other monsters are eating other monsters, so he just hadn't eaten his first one yet.
Wouldn't it be great if that's what it was? If like he had to eat King Kong and then he got bigger, even though he's a robot. Doesn't make any sense at all. Captain Kuhn, $10 Canadian super chat. Kong is character like in the Kong films, while Godzilla is just there to mess cities up, like in most Godzilla movies. How do you guys feel about that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I was saying earlier today that Kong being the protagonist made the most sense because he's the one that shows the most emotion. And Godzilla's more known, like that guy said, for just kind of showing up and wrecking things. And we haven't really seen that in this series. He's always the good guy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to finally get to see him just rock up in a city and just start smashing stuff.
And I like that they're able to do that while still kind of having a throwaway explanation for why he's not technically gone against humanity and he's a bad guy. He's just showing up to try to take out Apex areas, and that's about it.
Yeah, they did manage to walk that line, right? Like they had their cake and ate it too with that, where he wasn't suddenly a different character, but he did show up just to blow up things but it was all Apex stuff he was blowing up. I only saw the movie once, so you guys might on repeat viewings have picked up on something that I didn't get on the first time I saw it, or the one time I saw it, but. He shows up at the beginning to go blow up an Apex facility. Was it because he like sensed the Ghidorah skull. Was that what it was?
It was Mechagodzilla. Like they do have like pieces of it around the facility, and
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah. And
Yeah,
then
like
there's a
I was
moment
confused
where
about that
they-
because I didn't think
yeah.
that's where the skull was, but I thought it must have been the skull that he was picking up on, so I was confused about that.
well, I think it is the skull and the Mechagodzilla because they use the skull. They have like a guy sitting inside of a skull for some reason in order to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But
because they
it's
turned him
on
into a
Kurosawa.
drone. Basically, he's a it's a skull. It's a telepathic skull of a monster that controls a machine that is controlled by a man wearing a helmet with the skull on him. That's a drone, and that's how they. It's fantastic.
So yeah, I think what happens is they find out that Godzilla's coming and they quickly like disassemble everything and then ship it away really fast. So I think that's how they get around the Godzilla problem.
Yeah, well, there's a throwaway line where the head of Apex says that Godzilla's been after them since Mechagodzilla first learned how to walk. So this isn't the first time they've turned him on.
But that's weird because it is the first time in 3 years that anybody has seen Godzilla. So are we to
Yeah, right.
so are we to believe then, Austin, that Godzilla has attacked them before and somehow they were able to just keep it out of the news? It was like far enough away that nobody knew about it?
Well, I assume that when he attacks at the start, that's probably the first time they turn him on, and they're just kind of testing it out, and then Godzilla attacks, so then they like move it. Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying that they're not talking about even previous times, even before that. So you're suggesting that the first time we see him is probably the first time they actually turn the robot
Most
on.
likely just by the 3-year date thing, but like I said, it's more of a throwaway line where he just kind of says, "Yeah, he's been after us since we first turned him on."
Yeah. That's just weird if it's anywhere before this movie. Divid 22, did Kong wake up and get his morning latte with foam? I mean, he might as well have.
Well, that's what he drank it out of the skull of a giant snake. That was where he kept his latte.
Let's just go ahead and go to that, to the super chat about that then, shall we? Because it's great. OAW, $5 super chat. Kong drinking another monster's skull was the most gangsta thing I've seen in a film in a long time. Team Godzilla all the way, but Kong won my respect. That was I couldn't believe they put that in a movie. That was fantastic. And you should have seen my kids. They were like, God.
That's one of my favorite things about this series. Like in Kong Skull Island, he's walking, he gets attacked by an octopus, and then he just starts eating it. And then in King of the Monsters, Godzilla starts eating one of the heads of King Ghidorah at the end. And then in this, you get, King Kong like drinking like the blood and stuff out of a decapitated monster. It's great.
And those monsters looked cool. They're like flying snakes. That's so cool. I don't know. I want to see more Kong eating brains in a sequel. I really want a sequel set with Kong in the Hollow Earth. That would be awesome, where he finds out more about the history of like the Kong species or whatever, and then he eats more monster brains.
King Caesar will be the king of Hollow Earth, and King Kong's got to fight him to be the new king.
That's perfect. I would love that.
But for your design thing, Connor, like 2014 was the Cloverfield monsters, and this one was Dragon Wars, where just the snake dragons. From
Oh
that
my
show
god,
up.
you're right. Yeah, I don't even know if Cap knows what that is. Dragon Wars is just terrible, but it's got some funny monsters.
Yeah, just giant snake things like that.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of when they showed up.
I completely forgot that movie existed until you just brought it up.
Yeah, I've probably seen that too many times.
I forgot about Cloverfield. I love that movie. I don't care what anybody says.
Cloverfield's really good. I like that movie.
Divid 22, did Kong vs. Zilla have the BVS Martha moment? No, it did not.
And that joke has been completely run into the ground and has been beaten so bad it's a bloody pulp of a horse.
I'm sure. Yeah. Has that been the big meme all week?
That's been the big meme for like 3 years.
Oh, really?
It's like save Mothra.
Yeah, when I
Mothra.
first heard that in
Oh.
2017, I was like, that's really funny. Like leading up to the movie, I probably heard it 6 times a day for like the last month.
But thanks so much for the super chat. Reggie Hustle Jr., $5 super chat. Welcome, I don't recognize that name. Godzilla realizing the bigger threat and putting beef aside made him charging the axe so big for me.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Kong
and Kong performs like a full-on fatality. Like,
Yes,
I have no
Jason
real
said the
faith-
same thing. As soon as it's really funny because right before that moment happened, Jason goes, well, they have to put Kong in Mortal Kombat now. And then he did the fatality. I couldn't believe he said that.
Yeah,
awesome.
and I don't have a lot of faith in the Mortal Kombat movie, so if that's really bad, I'm gonna be really happy that I at least got that action here.
Seriously. Yeah, Jason was practically applauding at that moment. He's like, oh, they did it. They just did a Mortal Kombat fatality with
That's
Kong.
basically the original Sub-Zero one where he rips the head and skull out like he's Predator.
I mean, I think Spencer and I were the only ones in the theater, but I don't care. We were just like cheering and applauding like a couple of children. It was so good. I loved seeing my boys fight, but it felt so good to see them team up too. I forgot to mention this, but them bringing Kong back to life, basically, I think is a reference to the original King Kong versus Godzilla. Because I don't know if you know this, Cap, but
I probably
originally
don't.
it was supposed to be Frankenstein versus Godzilla.
Oh, I had heard that now that you say that.
It was going to be a giant Frankenstein, which was later turned into Frankenstein Conquers the World, aka Frankenstein versus Baragon. And then, but some of that still stuck around in King Kong versus Godzilla. So, Godzilla is basically burying Kong alive in the middle of their fight, and then Kong gets struck by lightning, and then he comes up and he starts having electrical powers and starts electrocuting Godzilla. And I think that'd honestly be kind of fun for for a Frankenstein like kaiju. But in this one, they sort of bring Kong back to life by electrocuting him by having a supersonic defibrillator. So I thought that was neat.
Yeah, it's one of 3 big references to the original film that I noticed, which is that you get Kong being airlifted in a net by a bunch of helicopters, and of course King Kong shoving a tree down Godzilla's throat while he's trying to breathe atomic breath. Which is the best shot of that original movie.
It's so good.
Like, Adam Wingard deserves a medal for throwing that in there.
And this movie, he takes the butt of his axe and shoves it inside of his mouth. It's so good. I love this stuff so much.
Yeah,
I like that he actually did something with that axe, because as soon as we got that, I was like, okay, I mean, it's a weapon, too. You are going to use it at some point, right? Yep. Yep, that happened. John Kelling, Kong and Godzilla tag teaming Mechagodzilla had serious Cap and Bucky versus Iron Man Civil War vibes, and I loved it. Really fun movie. Hashtag RIP Ghidorah. I wasn't honestly reminded of any other team up things too much, which is or versus things, which is one of the things I really appreciated about it. Like the only places where I was thinking about other crossover things was where it was subverting things and doing that stuff better. Like with the examples that we gave earlier.
one of my favorite things about the team up fight is that Godzilla is obviously way more powerful than King Kong is. So you'll get shots where like King Kong's on one arm, Godzilla's on the other, and Mechagodzilla will just unload 12 missiles into Godzilla's face and then like punch him out and then just kind of push King Kong over.
Yep, that was great. Yeah, because it could have been really lame when they team up and they could have beaten Mechagodzilla like in 5 seconds. And I mean, they get him pretty swiftly, but it was still an actual fun fight. Like there's no place where I feel like they're doing really routine action in this. It seems like they're being pretty creative with all the storyboarding.
Yeah, and I'm glad they didn't feel the need to do both Mechagodzilla and Mecha Kong because you have Godzilla and King Kong. Like, I'm glad we didn't need to do like a 2-on-2 fight for that. I think what they did was really good.
Yeah, and they're both so worn out.
And how would you contrive the Mecha Kong anyway? Like, well, we made both. We couldn't decide between. We're gonna make. You know what we'll do is we know that there can only be one because the MonsterVerse is apparently like Highlander, right? And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna have we're gonna build two robot versions of the last Titans we have left. After we've used them to destroy the actual last Titans, we'll make them fight.
Well, they'd be like, well, we don't know which Titan is stronger, the giant nuclear lizard that can blow up an entire city or the giant monkeys. So let's make both of them machines, and then we'll...
That's the thing. As powerful as they've made Godzilla in this, despite how huge Kong is, like, it's nice that he was able to hold his own, but, like, he does have to lose, right? Like, I'm not sure I would buy him beating Godzilla. And I know there's some people in the comments that were really disappointed that Kong lost, but, like, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Well, I was worried they'd do the other way. Yeah.
That second fight they have where they say round 2 goes to Kong.
Goes to Kong, yeah.
He was tearing it up. He was getting creative with the city and using it as a weapon against Godzilla. So I was like legit thinking that Adam Wingard was going to pull that trigger and have Kong win. And like, you know, they sort of paint him as like the protagonist and, you know, like the original Godzilla kind of takes the heel role. So I thought, you know, just because he's the good guy, he's got to win. But they didn't just have Godzilla win. They basically had Godzilla kill Kong.
He killed Kong, yeah.
Amazing. I mean, I'm a team Godzilla. I mean, so Rasco is a team Kong guy, and he said, right when that movie was over, he said, "I'm offended. How dare Kong lose?"
I never had that moment where I thought they'd actually kill Kong off. I mean, I'm sure you guys didn't either, right? Like, I never thought that would actually happen.
Going in, I thought maybe they could kill off Godzilla because it's their last film with him, but it was like a maybe. Like, we'll see how it goes. When I was actually watching the movie, it was like, yeah, it's not gonna happen.
But once they did the tear jerky, like, try to make you think that Kong is dead thing, there's no way you guys bought into that.
No.
Well, I thought maybe, you know, next film could be King Kong Lives, where they find a Lady Kong, give him a heart transplant, and it would just be a remake of that film.
Or it could be like The Search for Kong. And it's basically like a cross between Search for Kong and Justice League, where like Godzilla feels really bad for killing King Kong, and then he goes and tries to come up with some way to resurrect him. It's probably mystical in nature, right? Like Godzilla goes to some kind of wizard or something, and tries to get him to resurrect Kong.
To the Mothra girls, and they bring him back.
I almost said the Mothra girls, yeah.
He brings him down into the Hollow Earth, and he finds like King Caesar is like a witch doctor who can bring him back.
Did you guys? We haven't talked about this at all. Obviously, the human side is mostly pretty schlocky, and some people in the comments seem to not like that, and think that there's too much, like, you know, really crappy like exposition and stuff. For the sake of this movie and looking at other Godzilla movies, I was kind of fine with it, especially because it didn't go on for too long, and it was played so straight, and they seemed to know what they were doing. But I thought that the girl that could speak to Kong through sign language, I thought that stuff legitimately had a little bit of heart to it. I liked that whole relationship quite a bit. I really legitimately, I liked that.
For my first viewing, I really liked Rebecca Hall and the little girl, that whole relationship. And I was like, oh, well, those two are really good, and the rest of the human stuff is just kind of okay. And then on rewatching it, I also really liked whichever Skarsgård is in this.
Yeah.
I thought he was really good, too.
Did you guys have a thing where when Skarsgård is specifically wearing his shades, he looks like Patrick Wilson?
I don't know who that is.
Patrick Wilson's Ocean Master from Aquaman.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I liked it. I kind of like what they do with it, where, you know, she's like kind of the last of her kind, and Kong is the last of his kind. So that's why they have the little connection there, and they both sort of have only lived on Skull Island. So I like.
Wait, is Patrick Wilson also Night Owl from Watchmen, or is that a different guy? Okay,
yeah, that's Patrick Wilson. Yeah, I really like the moment where they're in Antarctica and they're trying to convince Kong to go into the Hollow Earth, and he doesn't want to go because it's like he's going back into that man-made kind of habitat, like what Skull Island had become. So he's contemplating just running out into Antarctica where he'll freeze to death. And the second that the little girl's like, your family might be there, he immediately like books it into the hole. I thought that scene was really good.
What was great about, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that really impressed me was that they didn't actually lie to him.
Right.
Yeah,
Because the Apex guy is
we're gonna
like
lie to
basically
him.
tell him whatever you need to tell him. I did think it was silly that the other humans didn't see the mustache twirliness going on with the Apex people, but because it's pretty obvious. Like, wait, you want to do what? I'm like, nah, they were clearly bad people. But when the Apex guy, whatever his name is, was like, well, just tell him that some of his kind might be there, and then the lady was like, but we don't know that for sure. And the guy's like, well, just tell him anything to get him to go. And then the way she like instructs the little girl to explain it to Kong is like, say your family might be there, and like there's truth to that. Like that might have been true. So I love that they didn't have to like. There's no manipulation of Kong going on there, even though that's what the Apex guy wanted to do. There's some nuance there that I would not have expected from this movie.
Yeah, I like that. The good guys in the human side are like, they're good guys, and the bad guys are like mustache twirling villains. But one thing that I think is Draven G in the live chat says that Skarsgård played Tarzan a few years ago. So I think that's pretty funny that he's on Team Kong.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Almost like how our current Aquaman was already an Atlantean before he was Aquaman.
That's right. In Stargate, right?
Yeah, Stargate Atlantis. He was like the main Atlantean, and then he ends up being Aquaman. And nobody talks about how he's typecast.
Because everyone just knows him as Conan, and that, well...
As crappy Conan.
But he was also in the first season of Game of Thrones, so... But no, he knew his roots. He was an Atlantean at heart.
He just likes being in water. If they ever do a Sequest reboot, he'll be first in line. Super Billy, and I will be right there. I will totally watch that. $5 super chat from Super Billy. Thanks, man. Godzilla vs Kong equals visually stunning action sequences undermined. This is actually what I was referring to earlier. By a ridiculous mythos and characters spouting really stupid expository dialogue. So he didn't care for the human stuff, and he also doesn't seem to like the mythology very much either.
Welcome to Godzilla.
You do get to a little bit of, and it's funny that I'm saying this because this is obviously the property I'm about to mention, super influenced by Godzilla, but if you really like the schlocky Godzilla stuff, you wind up at a Power Rangers place, right, where it's like, this is really good for Power Rangers or for Godzilla.
Yeah, and you saying that makes me like actually want to go back and watch some Power Rangers, which for anyone who knows me is almost like shocking to say because I've never really had much of an interest. But yeah, no, you kind of saying that about, and these are like both, like I think, what is it? Power Rangers is originally tokusatsu footage that's repurposed.
Yep.
For so I might actually go back and check out Power Rangers stuff if it's enough like wacky Godzilla stuff.
And starts from that same sort of place, right? I mean, like tokusatsu exists because of kaiju movies, and it's really funny that like I've never been into that stuff, but I'm a big Power Rangers guy, and like you love kaiju movies, but you've never bothered with any Sentais, and like we should cross over a little bit because both of these things should appeal to both of us for similar reasons. Like go back to first season Mighty Morphin, and the Dragon Sword is just Mechagodzilla, and one of the reasons that it's difficult for me to really appreciate the design of Mechagodzilla in this is that I kind of just wanted to look like the Dragon Sword because that's pretty much Mechagodzilla, and it has the spinning tail too, by the way.
Oh, does it?
Oh yeah.
Well, my Nori brain was blown by something that you guys have seen
for years and years. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
That I probably have 4 different toys of in my house. We need to compare notes, Connor. We should just sit down and show each other stuff because I think we would probably both appreciate each other's, childhood Japanese obsessions.
I concur.
On the movie, Draven G has a thing.
Yeah.
He says, I thought it was a bit of a waste that Shirazawa's son was a villain in this, and they didn't touch on that. I agree with that. I don't think there's any reference to them being related, but that's who that is.
Oh,
he's just kind of a throwaway villain, yeah. He's the guy that is controlling Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, I knew that's who that was, but I didn't realize he was supposed to be related to the. Okay.
Because his dad dies trying to bring Godzilla back to life in the last film, and his son, like this one, dies trying to kill Godzilla.
Can I say real quick, and I probably should have led with this, but one thing I appreciate about this, I mentioned at the beginning of this review that I had only seen each of these up to this once. This will be the one I'll want to go back to probably, and maybe I'll watch Skull Island one more time just to see some of the Kong stuff before we got to this again. But I gotta tell you guys, I really appreciate how easy it is to watch this if you're not familiar with the series or you don't know it all that well, because I think they do a decent job of giving the like bare bones exposition that you need for certain things that happened before without that like taking over too much or being overly recappy. I do think this movie, as possibly the last in a franchise, is really accessible for a first time viewer, surprisingly.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I also liked, I forgot to mention this a while ago, but you were talking about like how well you like the storyboarding of it, and I thought that they got really creative, not just with the monster fighting, but with the camera work. Like there are some like really creative, like dizzying, moving camera stuff.
Just by your hands, I know the exact shot you're talking about.
where they're on the aircraft carrier.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was nuts.
They got creative with it, and it's not. It didn't give me motion sickness, but it did give me the sensation of like the dizzying monster stuff that they do, which is fun.
Yeah, well, I love the shot where King Kong picks up a jet and throws it, and you get like the inside shot of the jet spinning, and the pilot bails out.
I love that the pilot bails out. I want and does that not happen in some Godzilla movies? I feel like I've seen that shot.
In the last movie, like Rodan is taking out all the jets, and then a guy like ejects into Rodan's mouth. And it's the best part of that movie. Yeah,
I forgot about that because I'm not remembering anything from King of the Monsters for whatever reason. I saw it in the theater the one time.
Well, to your point that you were saying, Cap, about like this is the one you'll want to go back to.
Yeah.
I've already seen it twice, which I haven't really done for any of them since the 2014 Godzilla movie. But it honestly makes me want to go back to watch Skull Island and King of the Monsters, and maybe I'll appreciate them more.
I really think King of the Monsters will be reappraised a little bit after this.
You think so?
I'm not saying that it's a great movie suddenly, and I don't remember a lot about it, so I would need to watch it again as well. But I'm just saying that, like, a lot of the things that I heard people complain about from that movie are some of the same things that they're praising this movie for.
Well, okay.
Because what I heard with the last one was, it's too silly and crazy, they went too far. With this one, it's, can you believe how far they went? Like...
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm just wondering if that will get reappraised a little bit, where they'll appreciate some of the schlock because this one played it, better for them for whatever reason.
Well, that film already says they're ready to go to aliens because they're not afraid to say King Ghidorah is an alien.
Yeah.
I don't mean to just keep going to the experience my kids had, but I gotta tell you one more thing because you mentioned that bit where he throws the airplane. So he throws the jet and the guy jumps out of the plane and Freddy goes, "Why did he throw that airplane?"
He's a thinking animal. He uses tools.
I was like, well, Freddy. First of all, he doesn't care if people die, and secondly, he's resourceful.
I love the part where he jumps on that aircraft carrier. And where he jumps, like it sends the other side going up, and then a rocket or a jet goes off on like basically a ramp. It was like a Hot Wheels moment that was really cool.
Yeah, and when I saw that still image of just King Kong and Godzilla on a battleship together, I was like, that's so stupid. Like, they're way too big. That doesn't make any sense. And then in the movie, it worked completely.
David 22 could see. I just don't like these questions. I'm just not interested in who would win in a fight. But I'll read it. Could Tommy Dragonzord beat Mechagodzilla? I'm gonna say no because it's a lot smaller. Pretty sure the Dragonzord would be a lot smaller than Mechagodzilla.
If somebody has some coffee to pour on Mechagodzilla, then maybe, but probably not.
I think that Mechazord would be like an ankle biter, and it would just like bite through Mechagodzilla's ankle and just knock him over. So
Well, I think
the
they would
Black
actually
Knight
just
from,
both.
Holy Grail.
Yeah, because the Dragon Sword will bite things, and there's one of the famous shots with the Dragon Sword is I wasn't planning on talking about Power Rangers, by the way. It picks up a missile and puts it in its mouth and breaks it.
oh, that's great.
But I would imagine that they would both just shoot missiles at each other just constantly until one finally fell over. I think that's what would happen. Although Dragonzord could win. I guess I am enjoying this question, David. Dragonzord could potentially win because I think it might have more missiles in it. Like, I can't tell, because Mechagodzilla, it always seems like just has like a couple missiles it shoots from like its midsection. Like, I don't know how many it can shoot. I always only ever see it shoots like one or two and then it's done shooting missiles. Like, does it have a bunch of turrets?
Shoulder ones and stuff.
It does have shoulder ones, doesn't it?
They recaptured that Mechagodzilla just constantly shooting random weapons, and like he pulls out different ones. Like he's got like a Scorpion from Spider-Man. He's got like his tail that he can like drill into things, and he's got the rockets on his back.
That's true. I guess it has more than I realized.
Yeah, it all depends what Mechagodzilla you're going with. Because if you're going with the Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, he's got the shoulder cannons, but Showa era has like rainbow laser beams as well as a chest laser beam, and he's got like rocket fingers and rocket knees and rocket toes that just seem to like replenish. And like if I had to do a one perfect shot for Terror of Mechagodzilla, is where he just starts unloading the arsenal, and then Godzilla's running in slow-mo while the entire miniature set around him just explodes. And it's glorious.
Well, see, Dragonzord does that too. He's got missiles in his fingers, and he'll shoot them out like that. And then he's got like the big round thing on his front where he's got missiles all through here.
Okay.
Well, and nothing can beat Showa era Mechagodzilla, because he also has that spinning head move that like creates a force field around himself.
Oh man,
Logan Dodd. I'll answer this just real quick. Another off-topic question. Cap, have you watched Amazon's Invincible? Thoughts? Not yet. I'm gonna wait probably till that season's done, and then hope, because I was hoping to read some of the comics a little bit before I got to that show, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So we're already 4 or 5 episodes deep, so I thought I'd wait on it. Super Billy. I don't know if either of you guys have watched that yet.
I have not. No.
I'll probably watch it. My brother's reading through the first collection right now.
I want to. It looks great. Super Billy, last super chat. I love Godzilla, Kong, and Schlock. GVK was almost precisely what I wanted. It was just bogged down by boring filler, which interrupted the dumb fun. I expected more of that to be boring, but I was actually personally not bored with most of that stuff.
I thought that the human plot is like kind of what I went at it. Is like I said earlier, is it's entertaining stuff that functionally gets things to where they're supposed to go, and just as far as like the kind of boring human stuff, it kind of stayed out of the way of the monster stuff for the most part. And I don't know, like even the monster fights, I just think about the King of the Monsters where it's all rainy or snowy or smoky. It's always like kind of at night and behind a filter of some kind of particle effect. And I thought that was so. It sounds like Super Billy, I think you had the same experience I did with King of the Monsters, which I can sympathize with. Yeah.
I have another thing with the fight, which is because obviously the first thing you think of with Godzilla versus King Kong is Godzilla can breathe fire. So I like that there's just a whole like 5-minute section of that fight that is just him breathing fire and King Kong dodging it.
Yeah.
And that's the one that King Kong wins.
Yeah, that's great.
And also King Kong going down on all fours and running at Godzilla going down on all fours like a crocodile and running at King Kong is terrifying. But it should be silly.
It's just nice,
especially when he like leaps into the air from being on all fours. Like,
and I know this sounds really superficial, but this is the material that we're talking about. It's nice that we're able to talk this much about the actual action sequences and what specifically is happening in them, right? Like Connor, you mentioned like some of the previous movies, too much at night, too much weather. The whole last battle, pretty long, probably what, 15, 20 minutes all by itself with it cutting back to human stuff a little bit, is all at night. You can see everything that's happening. So that's nice. I mean, look, I like some atmosphere. I would have been fine with one fight in the rain if I could still sort of see what was happening, but you don't want to feel like it's a lot of weather just to obscure the CG in case it doesn't look good enough. That's what it always felt like to me, and I don't know if that was the reason, but you do too much of it, and it seems like you're cheating somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like they were completely going with that criticism, where the first fight with the ships is all during the day.
And then the fight with Mechagodzilla at the end is during the morning, during magic hour, where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have like half the fights are in the daytime, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was just thinking of all that Hong Kong stuff that was like actually at night, so you could see the neon signs and everything, and that it felt like that was all lit up by just the city, which was cool. And did you guys notice there were places where they'd run into a building and like the lights would flicker a little bit? Like they thought about all that stuff.
Oh, one of my favorite things, just like random detail that I've never seen in any giant monster film, is Godzilla like pulls out King Kong's arm from its socket, and when he gets back up to fight Mechagodzilla, he slams it into a building to put it back in.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Philip Kelton, 50 Mexican pesos. Thanks, man. There are two sides of the Godzilla spectrum, serious and cheese. You can put your story anywhere between, but I'm just going to read what he said because I'm not sure what this means. You can put your story anywhere between does too, but you need to stick to it. I mean, I think they found the balance finally. Because it sounds like what he's talking about is balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And consistency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think with 2014, it's a plot that's more of a schlocky Godzilla film, but it's very serious, and I don't think it works completely, even though I do like that movie.
Do you think it's
and I guess,
it's kind of self-serious, where like it's taking itself too seriously? Because that's how I felt about with it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. Yeah.
And I also think it's just a mistake to kill off your most likable character halfway through and the thing you sold the movie on. I don't think you should sell a movie on Bryan Cranston and then kill him 45 minutes into your movie.
When he's the best part of the human side because he's really good. And you get the Maximoff twins who are now married and they're both terrible.
Yeah, like you think about the plot of that 2014 Godzilla movie, and you're right, it's a little schlocky. Like, it's about monsters that want to eat radioactive missiles so they can make them bigger.
Yeah,
that's true.
And all the MonsterVerse films are very simple. We have that where it's like they want to eat some radiation and reproduce. Like Kong, it's like we landed on this island, let's get out of here. And King of the Monsters is, one big monster comes out. Now they got to beat him up. But like the last few at least know that.
And this is Highlander.
Yeah, basically.
It's Highlander mixed with like Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I can get behind that. Speaking of some of what we're talking about right now with the mythology, Super Billy $2 super chat. The ancient rivalry nonsense felt unnecessary. There was some exposition about that I was a little bit confused about. And again, I saw it the one time, and I'm surprised that I'm remembering as much about it as I am, which must mean I enjoyed it a lot because a lot of it is sticking with me. Because I thought we were gonna get started. That's why I just did a sign flip and let you guys talk because I was like, I don't think I have anything to say. And as we're talking, I'm like, no, this is good. There's some stuff to delve into and talk about here. I thought this was going to be really short. I should never, ever, ever say that. But anyway, so there's a scene where there's some exposition about the ancient rivalry where they're talking about like the ancestors of Godzilla and Kong, and they're talking about it almost like a genetic memory thing where it's like they have to fight and try to delve it down to just one king of the monsters just because that's what their ancestors were doing. But then in that same conversation, there was also something that made it sound like the two of them had fought before. And I was very confused about all of that. I felt like it was two different conversations at the same time. I didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I thought it was just kind of what King of the Monsters was, where it's like there can only be one alpha. If there's more than one, then they go head to head. So if King Kong's out there, then Godzilla will show up.
And I think that's what it was supposed to be, but there's one line that made it confusing, and I would have to go back and find exactly the dialogue, Austin. But I was just saying, I got really distracted by it. It was always all I could think about for a couple minutes. Where it's like, I don't know if they know which characters they're talking about right now.
Yeah, it does seem to be like that genetic memory thing is just a quick thing so that we can. The ancient rivalry genetic memory thing is just there to get us to the Hollow Earth. And the more concrete reason that they do give is the kind of the Alpha Titan kind of thing where Godzilla is just in seek and destroy mode. But I don't know, I think the Hollow Earth is really imaginative and cool, and I really want to have a Kong sequel set there.
Absolutely, yeah. But with the ancient rivalry thing, it's the meta thing, right? Where it's the Japanese monster, it's the American monster. These are the big things that we want to see fight. They have an ancient rivalry to make it seem a lot bigger than it actually is.
It has to be elemental because it feels that way in the culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. Whoever asked that question, Super Billy, I don't know that you actually needed that. It's kind of a fun meta contextual thing if you think about it that way. I had not considered that. But I think it's kind of enough just that, again, in kind of paralleling these monsters to human beings as dominant species, where each of these represents a larger species and they're the only one of their kind on the planet, right? And human beings think they should be dominant, and then each of these, even though there's only one of them, or trying to be dominant, this is what powerful beings tend to do. That's really all you need.
Yeah, I think also I just thought about this right this second. With the ancient rivalry thing, because they kind of did that a little bit, not as a rivalry, but as two species that coexist with Godzilla and Mothra in the last film, where they've always been naturally allies, and Mothra's wings have Godzilla's eyes as images on her wings that she can flash, and just stuff like that. And I think it's just them thinking about the kind of animalistic side of these monsters a bit, and just kind of their evolution over time.
And it's cool that they put that much thought into that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Kelton, I'm sorry, I don't know what he's talking about, so maybe one of you guys will. Another off-topic super chat. I'd love to keep these to mostly what we're talking about with the reviews when we do reviews, guys. Off-topic, have you seen Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared? I don't know what that is.
Yes, I have. That's a few years old now. But yeah, that was big when I was in high school. Just like a online video series where it's like a cutesy looking kid puppet show, and then it goes really dark by the end of each video.
I remember my little brother saw that when he was 5 or something, and it scared the bejesus out of him. And I remember we were talking about it while we were camping, and I thought he was sleeping in the tent, but he wasn't. And he actually got so scared, he projectile vomited on the beach. I don't know. I think they're fun.
Yeah, my favorite joke in that first one is where...
Well, thanks for this derailment.
I'll go back after this, but...
Sure, go ahead.
Where they're... Because they're learning how to be creative, and it's spell out your favorite color, and it's red, blue, and the last kid goes green, and they're like, no, green is not a creative color, and they destroy his art.
One more from Phil Kelton. Oh, they sold the 2014 J. Robert Oppenheimer's quote of The Destroyer of Worlds. That movie disappointed me in so many ways. I've only seen that the one time, too. Like I said, I saw that in the theater and liked it more than a lot of people.
Well, yeah, that was the poster. It was Godzilla, and it was I am Death, Destroyer of Worlds. And it was part of that movie being too self-serious, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. That movie is just that is its own kind of Godzilla movie that's just the next version of where like the original Godzilla, the Return of Godzilla from 1984, even Godzilla 98, the worst one, where it's just Godzilla shows up and we primarily follow the military or a human as Godzilla's kind of doing his thing. And that kind of shakes things up by having him fight other monsters, but it is mostly concerned with the military fighting Godzilla and trying to figure out what's going on. But I don't know, it's a pretty good version of that kind of Godzilla.
Even Shin Godzilla kind of does that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then Shin Godzilla, when did that
which is
years later, even better.
Besides 54, the best version of that. I mean, maybe it's technically story wise better than 54, but I have a hard time getting it. I mean, I don't think it's fair to call anything better than that. It's such a brilliant, game changing, film. And was happily the first Godzilla movie I ever saw, besides the crappy 98 Godzilla movie, because, I saw that the week it came out when I was a kid. But I did manage to somehow see the original first.
That's good.
Oh, nice. That's a wonderful movie. I just rewatched it the other day, and I'm halfway through Raids again, because I'm going through all the movies again right now. I
think part of the reason I've never gotten into the later stuff is that I've not really wanted to watch a lot of schlock after that. I have a hard time getting excited about like the sillier stuff when that movie is surprisingly easy to take seriously and it's weirdly thought-provoking and I don't know, I just kind of think it's perfect and I didn't need anything else after it.
Well, it's just funny how, like, this character that represents, the nuclear strike in Japan and the fears after that becomes a superhero that protects Japan.
I think that.
But that's a meta thing too. That's because he's popular. We always do that with things that get too popular, even if they're supposed to be like pure evil.
And
not that Godzilla is, but we do that with stuff.
Most of the Godzilla movies, from like Raids Again till Terror of Mechagodzilla, is like it's a second Godzilla, and it's not the original. And I think what's kind of neat is that nuclear power has sort of been seen as like this more efficient, ecologically friendly way of doing things, and so Godzilla kind of became more friendly and protector of the planet after that original one, though. So I just think it's cool how that sort of real world framing of nuclear power is sort of like mirrored in Godzilla himself. I don't think that was maybe intentional, but it is kind of art imitating life in a sort of maybe subtle way.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and even like early on, he's still, even while he's a hero, he's still a jerk where Mothra's got to kind of kick him into gear.
Yeah. Yeah, in Mothra versus Godzilla, he's basically just hung over the whole time, like stumbling around and falling into buildings, and he's like, what's happening around me? I like that interpretation of Godzilla.
Yeah, and you get like Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, where Godzilla and Rodan are just fighting by themselves off in the corner for an hour and a half. And then Mothra's like, hey, come on, guys. We got this three-headed dragon we gotta fight.
And then like the little like twin fairies are like interpreting like their monster conversation. The humans are always bullying us, Godzilla says.
Godzilla, what terrible language.
Yeah, that is one I actually have seen, but it's been a while. I think Eric and I reviewed that a few years ago. And yeah, Connor, that first Godzilla movie also gave us, I think, my favorite name of a ultimate weapon, the Oxygen Destroyer. You never get better than the Oxygen Destroyer.
And then I think it was cool that Godzilla versus Destoroyah is basically just a monster manifestation of the Oxygen Destroyer.
Is that right?
Yeah. He's so
Which
cool.
is, I think if we do a remake of like Destroy All Monsters, that's who you do as the villain.
Ooh, yeah.
Didn't one of Via's bring back the Oxygen Destroyer? Was it King of All Monsters?
King of the Monsters.
Of the Monsters, yeah.
That's one of their most throwaway things. Yeah, it's basically the Superman and Doomsday like nuke scene from BVS, but they're like, we gotta kill Godzilla and King Ghidorah. Shoot the Oxygen Destroyer at them. We have that.
It is like introduced in the scene that it's used. Hello, we've been developing a thing called an Oxygen Destroyer. Get out of the blast radius because it's coming right now. Okay, boom. You're like, I guess that was the Oxygen Destroyer. Okay, well, whatever.
Yeah, it is pretty awkward.
I remember that not being great, but I couldn't remember if I was right and that was in that movie. But yeah, they just kind of bring out the MacGuffin Deus Ex Machina device, which is, to be fair, what that was in the first movie, but at least it was seeded.
Well, and the conversation about it's really interesting, where the guy's like,
Sort
"We
of
can
like the
never
thing that kills
weaponize
that
this."
beats Galactus, right? Like that's essentially the same sort of thing.
Yeah, but the conversation around it's really interesting in the original film,
Yeah.
where it's like this ultimate weapon, and like Serizawa's gonna die with it because it can't live past him, and stuff like that. It's very interesting.
I think it's interesting that they did have another Serizawa in this movie. Like we kind of briefly mentioned that. I think like there's probably just like a couple of missing scenes where he kind of goes on about how my father loved Godzilla, but he was wrong, and maybe has like that whole thing. But
Yeah,
I think it's
that's
a
the
little weird
5-hour cut.
Yeah, it's the 5-hour version. It's 3 additional hours of him going on soliloquies. But I think that I just kind of maybe wish that when we reference the original Godzilla, we can get away from. Whoops! I just spit when I said that. I think I
It's
still
your
wish we
atomic
could
breath.
Whoops! I'm nuclear over here in the Pacific.
Your spine's going blue.
But I think that like we only seem to like reference Serizawa from the original, but like Ogata was like kind of the main guy, and there was like, what's the doctor's name? Mifune? No, that's the doctor from Terror of Mechagodzilla. But I don't know. I think
Yeah, I
that
can't remember the name off the top of
there
my
are
head.
other characters from that movie we can repurpose. I don't know. I just think it's weird that we only ever seem to stick around with Serizawa, but that's okay.
We just
Well, it's
need
sort
the
of like
one-
that adapting the Wikipedia page thing.
That's true.
You need the
But-
one token person that says Gojira instead of Godzilla. So they're like, it's Serizawa. We killed him off. We need another one. It's Serizawa's son.
This has that too. I think the Evil Asian guy calls him Gojira.
Yeah, that's Serizawa's son. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You have to have that in every American one when somebody says, "Oh, I meant to say something about Mechagodzilla earlier. I don't love, and part of it's because it's the Fire Fist character who I don't think needs to be in this movie. I didn't love the way we named him. That seemed like real typical, like trying to shoehorn in a superhero name kind of thing. Where it's like, that's Metal Godzilla. No, it's Mechagodzilla. Why are you called? You could have maybe had a thing earlier in the movie about him being like a big anime fan or something. Like, why would he think of mecha? Like, why would he correct the guy? And then, I can't remember what exactly it was, but later in the movie, somebody else, I don't think they straight up call it Mechagodzilla, but they use the term mecha independently from the Fire Fist kid. And I was like, so 2 different people came up with Mechagodzilla. Okay.
You see, what you don't see is that on his foot it says Mechagodzilla TM, and only that kid saw it. So it's
Well,
like
that's in the
one of
5
the old ones had MG
Apex
written on them.
2021. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He noticed Mechagodzilla on his Bluetooth on his phone. He could connect to him and play some tunes.
That's like the same thing that happens in like the original Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, where the one doctor guy says, yes, it's a Godzilla made of space titanium. I think a good name for this would be Mechagodzilla." And then the next scene, you have the aliens who control Mechagodzilla saying, "All right, Mechagodzilla needs to be repaired. We need to fix his head." it's like, oh, I guess everyone got the memo to call him Mechagodzilla now.
Do you think?
And he just casually has an MG on like his shoulder. So, yeah.
Austin, do you think it'd be like Nebula in Endgame, where if Mechagodzilla went back in time, they'd both be on the same network?
Yeah, of course.
Somehow.
It's the same satellite.
Philip Kelton again. We jump from it, he left this a little bit ago, so I'm not sure what conversation he's referencing. We jump from thousand of death people to giant bug cute dating rituals. I'm not sure which movie or what conversation that we were having earlier he's talking about.
Because that movie's about the 2 Mutos trying to mate, and Godzilla's like, no, I'm gonna give you guys a lesson about safe sex, so he kills both of them.
Robert
Got out of
Wild,
the-
do any of you guys want to see a longer cut of this movie? Because they cut a lot of stuff out. I'm mixed on it because I think the pacing of this is so good, and I like that it is under 2 hours. And I'm not giving it a green sign flip because it's under 2 hours. But I will say that it seems like the right length for what we were given anyway. I don't feel like there's giant things missing, even though I know that they shot a lot. So like, I would like to see some of that material, but more just out of curiosity than to make the piece any better.
So the Adam Wingard quote I saw where he talked about how Godzilla vs Kong doesn't need to be over 2 hours. He also says that, like, for people that want that 5 hour cut because they heard about it, it's mostly just people talking. So he was like, most of you think you're gonna get a bunch of new action, but it's not. It's people talking about monsters. So, like, this is the movie.
And the main criticism I'm hearing from people is that the human stuff isn't great. So I imagine most of the people that liked this movie but had issues with it wouldn't want the longer cut.
Yeah, and yeah, not everything needs to like a giant long director's cut.
Warner Brothers has been specializing in that, but I mean, honestly, like, none of the other ones had longer cuts. I feel like it might be out of line. And also, like you said, Cap, like, there might be weird details that maybe don't add up, like we were talking with the ancient rivalry thing, and then we just kind of throw away that explanation. But it's fine. Like, I think, like you said, Cap, this is like the perfect length. I think that it does exactly what it needs to do for this kind of movie, and I was thoroughly satisfied with what I got. I don't need any more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough call with a thing like that, right? Because you might be able to technically improve the story and make it more cohesive if there are some things that are missing that if we put it back in would make that stuff add back up, but does it overall improve the experience of the piece ends up being the question. Like, if you really monkey with the pacing by adding 10, 15, 20 minutes back into it in order to give you that, is overall the product a better product? Would be hard to say until I saw it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like the Lord of the Rings extended cuts, where the theatrical films are tighter films. But for fans, it's like, yeah, you want to see that extra stuff, though, and it's cool for that. But the theatrical ones are tighter, except for Return of the King, which I think cuts too much. But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, no, like, there are cool creative decisions in, like, the theatrical version of Fellowship of the Ring. Like, the first time you see anybody put the ring on is that big dramatic shot of it falling on Frodo's finger, which is kind of like, which is a fun payoff. You get it teased throughout, but and the extended cut, you just kind of like blow that right in like the prologue where the one guy puts it on to get into the water. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like an extended cut would just sort of make this feel too long. You might get a little exhausted by the pacing, or maybe the pacing would feel a little out of whack, where when you get to the humans, it feels slower, and then when you get to the monsters, it gets a little too fast. And I don't know. Like, when it comes to, for example, like you were talking about, Cap, with if you make it longer, it maybe it's more cohesive, but it's bit more of a drag. That to me is the ultimate edition of Batman versus Superman, where it's hard for me to sit down and watch the 3 hours of that, because I think the extra half hour makes a huge difference just in terms of the pacing and the experience of sitting down to watch it.
And that also didn't help character motivations and things that actually made the whole thing a lot more convoluted, more confusing. It's possible that would happen with this too. I mean, we're because we don't know what exactly they cut out. So it could be a much more convoluted thing that, because of what they cut, we're calling a very simple, easy to follow story. You don't know. If there's a 5 hour cut, there's every possibility that that's the case.
Yes, 3 hours of more story.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily want that, having, not knowing exactly what that looks like.
I hope that there was like an hour-long subplot of just some dude hanging out where Rodan's nesting, and he just never shows up. Like, he's asleep the whole movie. But it's like, we got to address where he is.
Guys, if there's anything else you guys want to bring up that we haven't talked about, now's the time. We're going to go ahead and wrap up here in a little bit.
Did you get the not the last super chat, but the one before it? The 2014 film has many problems, but one in particular. Or no, did we read that, didn't we?
I'm not sure we did read that, but one in particular is that it's too silly to take serious, and it's too serious to be silly. I mean, I think we did basically talk about that, but yeah, I think I did
Yeah,
forget to read that super chat.
that's
Thanks.
why I couldn't remember if we read it or not.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning though, because yeah, I guess I did not read that, and I must have skimmed over it because we basically discussed that.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't remember because we basically talked about it.
No, thanks for keeping me honest, Austin. I appreciate it.
Trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm right about this, but I think because Godzilla's design slightly altered from the 2014 movie to King of the Monsters, and I thought during this that it might have been altered again to make him more like I don't know, like maybe jagged. I don't know if that's the right word. Like to make him look more menacing. I thought where when I see him in the first two movies, never had that thought, but in this one where he shows up, it's like, whoa, like he looks kind of freaky. But I don't know if that's more so just the tone or if I'm right about them kind of tweaking little parts of his design.
They probably do.
Mm,
I when you make like little tweaks to monster design, I generally don't notice them. But
yeah,
I think
exactly.
I noticed his legs were a little bit bigger here than they were in King of the Monsters. But
I thought he was bulkier in general.
mhm.
Like I thought his midsection, I thought his torso was a lot bigger, but
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that movie one time. What do I know?
Uh, Philip Kelton says that he would like to see a Zack Snyder Godzilla movie. Have you guys seen that meme where somebody basically said if Zack Snyder made a Godzilla movie and he's got like a machine gun in his arms? It's like perfectly like photoshopped. It's really funny.
Oh, I have seen that. That is great. If he made a Godzilla film, it would just be 3 hours of that one shot in King of the Monsters where Ghidorah is like full like wings spread out in front of the cross.
Ghidorah, the false god, is raining upon us. We must resurrect Godzilla in 3 days.
I don't know. I think people should just like. I think Snyder should just be allowed to make a film any way he wants to, except he doesn't get to pick what parts are slow motion. So somebody else has to edit it in the editing bay, and he's not allowed in there. And he just shoots the thing in the first place, and then sends it off, and then immediately it's less pretentious and a lot shorter.
Well, I want the like bullet time shot of Godzilla's atomic breath slowly moving at King Ghidorah, and then his head's like moves slightly, and it goes in between them, and then he shoots his ray back, and it's like a 30-second sequence that takes up 10 minutes.
Yeah, he could easily turn this into a 5 or 6 hour movie, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I guess people are because I'm seeing a lot of memes and things. I guess in discussion about Snyder. I guess with this, I guess it's just because we just had the Snyder cut, and this is another versus movie, and so
Well, and I don't know if you've heard
can't help but
about
think about
like
that.
the fan war between both of those sides too.
Of course, that's a thing.
Because this movie came out and the Snyder people went, "Oh, like screw you, Warner Brothers. This is what we want." So they started to review bomb this movie, even though WB's just distributes it, and Legendary is the one that actually makes it. And then the MonsterVerse people then went back and started review bombing the Snyder Cut.
That's
And it was
also
just like
silly.
back and forth, and it's
But
really funny.
But if the Snyder obsessed fans would really pay attention, tell me if I'm wrong about this. But I thought what happened was that they pushed the release of this movie back for the Snyder Cut. Didn't they push this back like a week because of the
Yeah, they
Snyder
did,
Cut?
yeah.
Okay, well, if they hadn't done that, then perhaps fewer people would have seen the Snyder Cut. Like that was the only thing that happened that weekend, so everybody saw it and was talking about it. Like they should be glad that happened.
Yeah, apparently they
Warner Brothers bad, so
yeah, Warner Brothers wanted to bury the Snyder Cut by releasing Godzilla vs Kong
Later.
after the Snyder
That
Cut.
that doesn't, and understand, this is not me going back to bat for Warner's, because Warner's hired Snyder in the first place, and I thought that was a bad call. Like, I have all kinds of issues with the way they've, and beyond that whole thing, I don't mean to just talk about this again. I guess it's less that they hired him and more that they gave him the keys to the kingdom after Man of Steel was as polarizing as it was and didn't make the money they wanted. That has never made sense to me. Like, it's just weird business. And then after that, they just keep, like, putting their tail between their legs every time a movie comes out, and it's not the way they wanted it to be, and so they, keep, fishtailing and changing things. So I'm not going to bat for Warner's at all when I say that, but it seems like they did everything that makes sense to me to make the Snyder Cut up front and people watching it. Like how exactly did they bury it? Like maybe I'm just missing some things, because I heard like Warner's really doesn't want people to see this, and I don't know what specific steps they took to make that happen, if that was true.
And honestly, I think about the Venn diagram of Godzilla, people who would watch this and people who would watch the Snyder Cut. It's a pretty big overlap.
Yeah, I would think they can both celebrate, like, both movies coming out. But one thing I will say, just because we're talking about the DCEU, because obviously when that started, they were very big on director-driven films. And I think this did that ultimately better, because as we said, each film is very different, and you can see what each director brings to each film. While those DCU films, at least early on, all feel like they're trying to be Snyder light, at least to me personally. But
and then Man of Steel's trying to be Nolan light.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
In the first place, sure. And after that 2014 Godzilla movie, I think these are just a lot more confident in general, and sure of what they are, even though each one is kind of a different thing, and they're not all great in my view. But Robert Wild, can we stop generalizing Snyder fans, please? Or Snyder Cut fans? Yeah, there are some idiots that review bomb Godzilla vs Kong, but that doesn't represent the majority of fans. If we were generalizing, I didn't mean to do that. We're just talking about the people who did do that.
Yeah, when in a conversation when I'm like, Snyder fans did this, I assume everybody knows a group of them, not literally every single one.
You say the people who did that were
like this group of Snyder Cut fans,
and apparently like a group of Snyder Cut fans who didn't like that some other ones did that. Apparently, like Positive Review Bomb did as well.
I didn't hear about
offset
that.
The cost of the negative reviews.
Well, then they were all ripped off anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Mutali says they leaked the Abrams Superman news to bury the Snyder Cut, and he says that was a rumored thing. Yeah, I was never sure if they did that on purpose or not, specifically about that. I thought it was weirder that news came out at the same time as Superman and Lois started.
Well, I feel like, people like being worried about stuff getting buried or kind of missing the point about putting out, oh, look, there's a Superman thing coming out, and just you wait, there's another thing with it's called a Snyder Cut. And
yeah, why does that make people go, oh, let's not watch the Snyder Cut now? I think the funny
I can see some logic to it, but I wouldn't think that it would actually affect viewership all that much. I see where people are coming from with that. The timing was weird. The logic is, the Snyder Cut is happening, and we know you're probably going to watch it, but this is not the direction we're doing moving forward. I don't think that's burying so much as just a kind of a, I don't want to say PR, but just a like a focus your direction thing where you're like just trying to get the news out of this is not what we're doing moving forward, guys, which is different from burying a thing.
And WB clearly makes stupid announcements. Like, they announced a bunch of films that they're canceling on April Fool's Day as a serious thing.
Did they? Oh, that was April Fool's Day. I forgot about that. Why would you do that?
Because when I heard it, I was like, oh, it's too bad it's April Fool's Day. Like, I don't care about that New Gods movie, so I'm fine with it being canceled. But, like, obviously it's still happening. And then it was like, wait a minute. No, that's an actual
And that was, and of course, that same day, people were like fake leaking stupid DCEU things all day because, of course, we've had our minds on DCEU lately because of the Snyder Cut, and so I was seeing things like, oh, two Henry Cavill Superman movies were just announced today, and I saw people that bought into that. I was like, guys, April Fool's Day, and now you're telling me that real news about the canceling, like New Gods was canceled, and then something else was canceled.
The
Trench, yeah, yeah. And by the way, the moment that was announced, I knew it was going to get canceled.
Who wants a Trench movie?
I never, thought. Honestly, if you did it right, me, because I think there's cool stuff you could have done with that. But I never thought we'd see it. I never thought that would happen. That was my favorite arc from the Jeff Johns run. Like, in a perfect world, yeah, I'd love to see that actually, but.
Yeah, then it could be Aquaman 2, not the solo Trench.
No, I know, it's stupid. I'm just saying, more of the Trench, Aquaman movie would be great. But...
Yeah, no, I like that arc quite a bit too, but it's as their own solo film.
Okay, well, we're off the rail, and we're not talking anything anymore about Godzilla vs. Kong, so I think it's a good time to wrap up. Either of you guys have anything else you want to make sure to mention before we go ahead and close up shop? I want to make sure that you have your opportunity.
Let's do Aliens next. Come on,
I'm
Aliens.
with you. I hope they
Heck
get to make anything, honestly. Because I asked you guys about that earlier. I'd like to see what this team would do next, because they finally, in my mind, like stuck the landing the best that they have. But there is that part of me that gets a little bit cynical. That's like, we got a really good one. The next 3 would suck, right? Like it's really hard for me not to worry about that. So I don't know.
So what we need is Kong, Hollow Earth, a Godzilla versus Gigan and Megalon movie, and then just a Gamera movie, Godzilla versus Gamera, and Godzilla Kong Destroy All Monsters with Desidroya as the main villain. That's phase 2 of the Monsterverse.
And I'm gonna throw in Gamera versus the Trench.
We can bring in the Universal Dark Universe as well. You can finally do Godzilla versus Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Well, and if we're in Warner Brothers territory anyway, I mean, they're only distributing, but if they're allowed to use stuff that Warner Brothers owns, then they could also do the 60s Batman versus Godzilla movie that almost happened in the 60s. They could also do that.
Okay, guys, I have a pitch for a film, okay?
Okay.
The Monsterverse stuff, it all, like, connects into a film in which LeBron James and the Looney Tunes have to play basketball, and the rest of WB is there, and they just play basketball, and LeBron is going to lose his Instagram followers unless he wins, and that's a movie.
They bring in Lil Bow Wow to do his song Basketball from the song Like Mike, and he puts out a new version of that for LeBron James. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, and they can bring back Puff Daddy and
Jimmy Page.
Jimmy Page, for a new song.
No, Jen and I wouldn't actually want that, because yes, I realize that Adam West is dead, and I don't think anybody could necessarily play that role again. But
you know who could play him is Adam West. So if we CGI'd Adam West into the movie,
no.
And you could even bring I don't know, what's a villain that wasn't done in '66? Is Mad Hatter in that?
Yes.
Yeah. Scarecrow's not.
Okay, Scarecrow played by James Dean. He'll be the main villain.
Yeah, Mad Hatter has these hats that have these giant eyeballs on the insides of them, so the hats pop up, and then they like shoot beams out of the eyeballs that mind control people.
Okay, well, Scarecrow will show up, and his biggest fear is dying in a car crash. So because of that, he creates a fear toxin to make everyone experience their fear. And he'll be played by James Dean.
Oh, and Mad Hatter is also in the episode where Batman gets his costume turned pink, and he's forced to wear a pink Batman costume through the whole episode. That also happens. And I have the action figure of that.
60s Batman is just my favorite.
I know, it's the best.
We should have pink Godzilla in that versus film. Godzilla, you got put in with a red shirt in the wash.
Now Godzilla's plaid.
Now I'm just picturing Mechagodzilla playing golf. I want to see King Kong with a jetpack in a future movie, though. That would be great.
Bag apparently just showed up in iBag and put in a $1.99 super chat. Big monkey, go monkey, woo. Those are my thoughts.
Good thoughts.
He was excited about the big monkey. Okay.
Those are certainly thoughts.
It just seems like that's the place to end this off. So, thanks for popping in back. It's good to see you, buddy. We will see everybody again real soon with more content here on the channel tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. I'm having to back some stuff off a couple hours. We're gonna be doing the Marvel Mania for Dark Phoenix, and I got to go watch that movie for only the second time in preparation for that because I don't know that movie at all. I saw it the one time in the theater. So look forward to that, folks. Me and DJ will be with you tomorrow night for that, and a Captain Logan show on Thursday also at 9 Central. And in the meantime, thanks a lot for watching. Thank you guys so much. This was a delightful conversation. I really appreciate you guys being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Mm-hmm. It was good talking to you guys about the movie and then everything in between after.
That was Connor Nielsen.
Bye-bye, everybody.
And the day ghost.
I'm gonna go drink blood out of my enemy's skull.
I'm not gonna do that later, but I might end up with a pink Geek Felution outfit. Okay, thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you next time.